Rural areas in Palawan, Quezon, and Cebu will soon have access to clean and reliable energy with the construction of 24 off-grid microgrids across these provinces. The Maharlika Consortium kicked off the 2.1 billion peso project in 3 barangays in the town of Rizal, Palawan. The consortium is composed of the Maharlika Clean Power Holdings, Clean Grid Partners, and WEnergy. How do I say that? Is it WEnergy Global? Each microgrid features advanced solar PV power, high-performance battery energy storage systems, hybrid generation, smart meters, and distribution grids. With over 50,000 residents living in 11,000 households set to benefit from the project, it's the largest private sector push for rural electrification. It's time to put sustainable initiatives on the spotlight, one story at a time. Welcome to Sustainability. Now we speak to one of the firms that is part of the consortium, and joining us is Quintin Pastrana, President at WEnergy Power Pilipinas and Director for Business and Markets Development at WEnergy Global. He's also President at Archipelago Renewables. Good evening, Quintin. Welcome to Sustainability.
Good evening, Cess and Sean. Thanks for having me.
Well, congratulations on what you have been doing. We sorely need it in this archipelago of ours. So explain to us first how a microgrid works.
Okay. Thanks, Cess. I mean, I think when you look at a microgrid, it is an integration of the 3 different components of a power supply system, which is generation, transmission, and distribution. So what you have are remote off-grid areas that are unserved or underserved, meaning to say no electricity. You have to build the grid, you have to build the power source, and you have to get the electricity to the populace, including small businesses, utilities, rural health units.
The distribution na rin, the
Yes.
retailer
So
as well.
all in one. So it's a one-stop
one.
shop. And I think it's possible to do it now because of the innovation you have. You know, our engineering is advanced. It's already enabled to do small systems in multiple sites. That's able to now battery storage is now at the most capable.
Yes, that was the problem before, no?
Exactly. So
Battery
lithium-ion
storage.
batteries are essentially commoditized now. You can actually store, as they say, pantawid between 6 p.m. and let's say early morning.
Pag wala ng araw.
Yes, and then after that we have basically conventional diesel generators that can help stretch it up until the sun rises again and charges the solar panels.
And all clean. No diesel. Goodbye diesel.
There is a small component of diesel, but these are
For a
also
backup lang.
but these are also biodiesel adaptive. So they have, for example, like in Palawan, there is a biofuels component there that can be
Made
adapted
from
down
where?
the road. You're looking at either
Coconut?
palm, coconut, all these other biofuels. So it's also compatible with the environment and also the local economy.
I know you've been with renewable for the longest time, but you've partnered with people who have the capital, right? Is that
Yes.
how it happened? Tell us the story.
Absolutely. So WEnergy is a European firm, mostly with that capital and based in Singapore. We have a joint venture partnership with Tokyo Electric Power, which is, let's say, the Meralco of Japan. And with that capital, plus local financing here from commercial banks, we're able to develop and deploy these projects across these sites. So
So-
around 24
Yeah,
sites.
wow.
A $35 million, which is the 2.1 billion concept, and you're looking at a split between 30% equity and 70% project finance. And that is a good model so that the investor gets return, the bank also produces a lower interest rate, and at the end of the day, you're able to supply clean, affordable, and reliable energy to
Mas mura
people.
kesa sa conventional.
Yeah, mas mura siya because-
coal
yes.
and all these other.
Yes, and you can hedge them against that because the renewable part, especially the solar, is basically at a fixed rate. You're not vulnerable, for example, to a Middle East war. And at the end of the day,
Right, and the prices.
exactly, and to get
of
and,
diesel.
and just to get it there to the islands, like Palawan, for example. Look how many hoops and seas you have to get to, and now we have the on-site, and sustainable and self-sufficient.
I was just about to say I should not monopolize you because it's a reunion of sorts.
I'm always happy to be back.
No,
Thanks.
I last saw Quintin when he was my co-anchor, and then he left to pursue renewables.
Yes, I was like, I think almost 10 years ago.
Almost 10 years ago. So I'm glad to hear, but I'm also curious, Quintin, how much are we talking about per kilowatt hour?
Yes, I mean, so if you look at the retail rates that were approved by the Energy Regulatory Commission, they're now at around 12 pesos, fixed for the next 15 years, which is with our contract. And basically, you're looking at 12 pesos is effectively the rate we pay here. There's a subsidy, obviously, from rural electrification, which is part of the law. And then you're also looking at around 15 pesos for the commercial rate. So at least there's a ability to pay, and that's still within the market range and will encourage more investors and residents.
Tourism, for instance.
Absolutely.
No?
If you look at just the example of Sabang with the UNESCO Heritage Site, where our first microgrid was or is.
This was you on your own, Pamuna, or did you have partners?
We had partners. Basically, the Maharlika Consortium was there already. We developed this already with WEnergy, with Clean Grid Partners. Prior to that, with Vivant as well and GPI.
So your partners with Vivant
Yes, that was
well.
that was the first partnership, and then we basically consolidated the ownership. And with that, you have a system that's so stable, and it effectively created a price incentive and a demand for tourists to come in more because there was an underground river there, UNESCO
It's
Heritage
close
Site.
to the
Yes, it's
underground
actually the back of that. And then what happened was you ended up having companies like Daluyan Hotel, which is a World Wildlife Fund warranted hotel, which is awarded. And then now you have the 4-point Sheraton there with a 270-room resort.
Wouldn't have happened if there was no energy.
I don't think there would have been an incentive to create something on their own and still make the economics work. And at the same time, the lack of clean energy would have actually deterred investors to come in. So now that you have this entire one-stop shop solution, which we're replicating across 24 sites, and that will also bring in more investors in other sites.
Plus, we're talking of areas na walang kuryente talaga
Yes,
to begin
yes.
with. Like
Yes.
Walang
zero.
incentive para tayuan ng extension ng grid. But Quintin, how much can one of your microgrids generate maximum?
Yes, actually, it depends on the size, right? For example, in Sabang, which is one of the larger microgrids, that's around, we have 1.4 megawatt solar, and then 2.6 megawatt hours of battery. So that is a large system, good enough for 600 households, and those 2 hotels, and the
600
RHU
households.
and a small hospital is going to be built there. So there's enough that we plan so that in the next 15 to 20 years, we can address the demand there. Now, if you look at the 24 sites, they average around 1 megawatt each. But the most important part is the number of households we actually cater to.
So you have to, the economy, it has to make sense for you also. That there are enough
You're right.
consumers.
There's an economies of scale in
Yeah.
the number of households. We also look at the factor conditions of the area. Like for example, the first 16 microgrids we have in Palawan, you have some in the
So
northern
yung
site.
focus on Palawan talaga, 16
Well, that's where a
there.
lot of the underserved communities are, but also a brilliant combination between agribusiness potential in the south, like in Rizal, Quezon, and Bataraza. And then in north, we have these more tourism-orientated sites like El Nido and San Vicente, and then up north in the Calamian Islands like Busuanga and Coron, where we have new microgrids as well. So it's a nice
You
balanced
have
portfolio.
already in Coron and...
Well, we're going to start there. We won the award thanks to the new law. And to Sean's point, there's a good incentive now because the Microgrid Service Provider Act, which has been passed in 2022, and an IRR, I think, in 2023, basically incentivizes investors to come in.
They're in
There's
attractive
terms.
incentives.
Contract sanctity, the DOE bids out the projects in a very transparent manner. So you're seeing more and more
Tax
players.
holidays.
Yes, absolutely. The BOI comes in as well, and there's enough incentive for more private sector partners, which we see coming in the sector.
Pero kayong nauna.
Coming nauna, we took a risk because I think that's where we felt we could have a leadership in this niche, but also very shared value type arrangement.
So these are all solar powered with a backup of diesel, you said, no? Are there other sources of energy that you're looking at?
Yes. I mean, as innovation grows along, and depending on where the area, you could have tidal, you could have wind. Currently, in the Palawan area or the northern Cebu area or the Polillo Island group in Quezon, those are primarily solar with a lithium-ion battery to basically absorb most of it. And then after that, yung konting pantawid lang, which is the diesel generator. So in total, we have at 6.6 megawatts of solar, 3.5 megawatts of diesel, which is the small part, and the battery 7.6.
megawatts.
And the 7.6
Is the
megawatts.
usual size 6 megawatt?
Well, that's the entire portfolio. It looks small, but it's divided among
big.
24 barangays. And what's nice about it is it shows that small is beautiful. You can make it work at a smaller level and then replicate it across the country.
Will the cost come down eventually? Could this be the solution? Because we have the highest power rates in Asia, right? And the reason that's always given is because we're an archipelago. The transmission, etc. It's you need big capitalization. So if we build mini grids around, is
Then you
that the
don't need to
solution?
connect to the national
You
grid.
don't need to connect.
need
Yeah.
to
It's a
connect.
smarter solution.
Yun yung yun yung mahal, di
Yun
ba?
yung
It's an
mahal.
absolutely smarter solution because climate resilient, they're remote, they're self-sufficient, and they require less fossil fuel. So if you look at just the rate of decrease in terms of the cost of solar itself, that's also driving the cost going down. And then also battery costs are going down. So when you look at the total of the potential, it's just fascinating when you look at the kind of impact you have.
Pero hindi na microgrid ang tawag doon.
Well, well, microgrids can be in the realm of, let's say, 100 households to 300 households. And what's helpful also under the law is there's also the National Power Corporation that takes areas that the private sector doesn't seem as viable. So these are the strategic
The
power
mga
utility.
missionary-
Yeah, the SPUG, missionary electrification.
Which are all on diesel, ano?
Yeah.
And,
supposedly,
that's
They are in
supposedly.
diesel, but to NPC's credit, they're looking at, I understand, a
Converting?
hybridization
Can you
program to build more solar into
Okay.
it.
Are
So
you
I-
interested in looking into that?
Yeah, we're looking at it for as long as the terms are good. I think all the investors are just looking at how does our investment have recourse, and we'll be happy to do it because there's still
How
2 million
long?
households that still don't have
How
electricity.
long
2 million,
before?
huh?
Yeah, but if you make an investment, how long does it take to recoup that investment?
Yeah, I think it varies depending on the size and the growth of the area. But in our experience, we think as an investor, you look at a 15-year contract. I think in a third of that time, assuming there's no lockdowns or any other force majeure, you'll be able to recoup your investment in the single-digit set of years. And then at the end of the day, everything else becomes the upside.
Well, the sun will continue to shine naman, di ba?
Even if it changes a lot, you're hedged because it averages out very well over time. So the longer runway you have, which is I think the improvement under this Microgrid Service Provider Act, you actually have at least 15 years. And that's a long enough runway for an investor to recoup the investment.
Like for instance, is it Visayas that imports from Mindanao its power needs? Something?
Yeah, my understanding is it's a little more complicated because there is a transmission grid already between Mindanao
And
and
to
the
the Visayas.
To the
Visayas.
Visayas.
And then the geothermals pretty much produce a lot that Cebu consumes. Cebu produces enough that Negros and others. So in a way, it's a bit of a mix now. It used to be Mindanao
Pero
also
we
supplying.
lack energy security kasi.
Yes,
diba?
and in the remote areas, in
Yeah.
those 2 million areas where it's the last mile delivery, that's where the development happens. That's also where
2
the most
million.
vulnerable communities are, and they're the ones that need the SDGs. And we're happy to show Cess and Sean that the crime rate in one of our areas has gone down 80%, the mortality rate down 70%.
And the impact on, I guess, the youth.
Yes,
They can do their homework.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
we measure that over time. So we had an intern from Stanford look at the metrics, and we saw that even the education rate after 5 years, which takes a little longer, it went from like 84% to 92%. So that's a
The
good jump,
impact, no?
even with the lag effect. And then the livelihood went up by 70%. Double the amount of registrations, and most of them run by women, which is it takes off all the boxes
Amazing, the
of the
impact.
SDGs. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. This is great work you're doing. Huh?
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations. I was just listening to
So
this
I'm not
interview.
upset anymore.
We're leaving you.
We're leaving
we're
me.
getting
No,
over it.
Ted Turner said this, and this
Okay.
was like an interview he did with Christian Amanpour.
Yeah, God rest his soul, yeah,
I
yeah.
think 2018
Yeah.
or something, and he said that the youth should go into clean energy. Bata ka pa naman siguro.
Kahit paano.
Pwede pa.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at this technology, some of it is now off the shelf. It's commoditized to the point that you can have your own solution. People are putting rooftops on their,
Yes.
people are putting solar on their rooftops. So those things you're becoming a prosumer rather than a consumer. You can see that at the household level. But when these new technologies come, like tidal, mini wind turbines. We have a mini wind turbine set up in
Really?
Singapore. That's going to be really interesting to deploy with these younger entrepreneurs.
And I guess the prices will come down also like solar. Kasi
Yeah, there's
mahal
a-
daw yung wave energy,
Yeah, there's a
et cetera.
Moore's law effect, I think, with like what they do with chips. It happens. It just depends on the rate of innovation. And of course, if there's no disruption in supply chain, the rate of decrease in prices is steady. So the batteries are getting cheaper. Hopefully, we won't have as much displacement in the Middle East or in Ukraine, so that these minerals and others can go, right?
right.
So
Critical.
They're in China, di ba?
yeah, they're in China as well. So that's why you have the straits are important for freedom of navigation. So the important thing is supply chain makes it happen, and at the end of the day, innovation, especially with younger scientists and STEM orientated folks, are going to be driving that innovation better.
We hope it will come from the Philippines this time. Is there?
I think so. I mean,
Innovation.
our state universities, the DOST, they have these funds and they have these grants. I think you look at the European Union. That happy development capital is still moving, and what you're really fueling is the innovation and ingenuity of entrepreneurs. And the idea is they just need a space and the materials to be able to do that. And test what they call an MVP, like the minimum viable product, and then be able to scale it. We've had Filipino investors already doing things on the wall for solar, but those things will be scalable in good time. In the meantime, we have to energize the 2 million households, and
Right.
everybody else I hope will join. Yeah.
It's a good thing time flies.
Yeah. Well, this is where more power to you
Actually means
kind of works.
very literally.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Quintin Pastrana, President at WEnergy Power Pilipinas.
Thanks for having me.